Hey everybody, Hector Navarro here. Nerdist brought me out to get over my fear of heights so that I can talk to the cast and director of Superman. I love this film, and I want to nerd out about so many things.
I mean, Hector, that means a lot coming from you, for real. Yeah.
Yeah, I really.
Okay.
It was an absolute joy, and
well, I found out my plane's leaving late today, so we can take an extra 2 hours. Let everybody know. All right, let's go.
On the record. Okay, here we go. First question. No, the thing I want to ask about is your love of DC Comics.
Yeah.
I know that I have like an era that I consider to be the most comfortable with my DC Comics era, right? Maybe the early 2000s, a little Infinite Crisis, around there.
Uh-huh.
And I know you covered the whole gamut. You've got some golden age stuff in here.
I did, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But what would you say is maybe your most comfortable era to begin with for DC Comics, where then you go, I don't really need to refresh this, I'm good, and now I'll maybe branch out?
I mean, I think the one thing that DC, listen, I grew up with DC Comics, but also reading comics a little bit more when they, were a little bit younger based, right? So I was in the Superman family, Shazam family, a Batman family. I was in all the families.
Yeah.
So I was into all that stuff. I was into Super Friends, the TV show. I watched those first run on TV. I was into, stuff because I got into DC Comics when I was 3 and 4 and 5 years old. And that was the stuff. So I still love all that stuff. I mean, I can't really go back and read that again, but I love the feeling of that. So there's something about that that's really beautiful that I wanted to bring to the movie. But I also really love the era of DC Comics that started happening as I was like in high school, which was, Dark Knight and Watchmen and, all of the Long Halloween, all of and then leading all the way into All-Star Superman, the great graphic novels or the great limited series that were basically Elseworld's Tale, but that were more adult-oriented. I mean, those were, to me, those are still, all of those are the best superhero comics ever made.
Yeah.
And I was a big Marvel fan too, but what Marvel didn't have was that.
Those standalones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The basic world of Marvel was awesome, but those standalones. And so I think that that's really what inspires me the most for these movies, is to be able to allow them to be very different from each other, but still connected. So it's kind of like taking that stuff from the early years that I love, and then trying to let that stuff exist in a way that both adults and children can enjoy it, but then also taking stuff from the graphic novel period, so that every project is different, so that this movie is very different from what James is doing with Clayface, or what Craig and Anna are doing with Supergirl.
I feel like you answered my next question, sort of, which was like, I want to ask you about the future of the DCU. I am vibrating with excitement about it, but I think you kind of nailed it, where you're like, everything's on the table.
Everything's on the table.
I know as a fan, I'm excited about, this potential DC event could happen, and I don't want to get too far ahead of it, because you've talked about how you're letting the scripts sort of dictate the overarching story. But as a fan, I feel like you're also just as excited about.
I mean, I know where we're going with
the
basic, bigger story, and so it's not it. It's really not what people expect. It's very different from what people expect. I think people will get much more information than Peacemaker. They'll start to guess a little bit better by the end of that series.
Okay, I'm so excited. A moment in this film that surprised me and got me choked up a little bit is just seeing kids chant Superman.
Yeah.
I felt like I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
I haven't felt it in either years, or kind of going back to those feelings you're describing, reading those comics.
Yeah.
Have you talked to kids who have seen the film? Have you gotten feedback? What's been your favorite response from like younger audiences that have seen it?
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that kids love the movie. But I also, I had a preview of it. What I really loved was being on set.
Yeah.
And every time kids were around David, it was really like Santa Claus. And they were so excited, and their eyes just lit up. And then seeing them react to this iconic character that people just adore, it was really awesome. And David just fulfills that character so well.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you guys released that behind the scenes, and it just got me so hyped to seeing that. I thought that was great. I'm here with Nerdist James. I just learned this recently. Apparently, Alan Tudyk, we all love Alan.
Yes.
Has a collection of yardsticks. He has like a collection of them.
Never heard this. I've known Alan for a long time. He's never told me about his yardstick collection.
So, follow up, I guess either it's not true and you're squashing it, just like you squash all the rumors, you're like, that might not be true. But it might be. But
no.
If it is true,
you want me to text him? I'll text him.
I would love that. Actually, a follow-up, we might email and double check.
Yeah. I'll text him. I'll text him as soon as you leave, and I'll find out.
After all of these years, all of these interviews, all of the sharing with your geeky passions that you've done, is there anything that you nerd out about that people, the audience, might not know about?
I think people would understand that I nerd out on, music, meeting Foxy Shazam, who people don't think of as a huge band, which we use our music a lot in Peacemaker. That was one of the greatest things. Eric is in the movie. The lead singer of Foxy Shazam is featured as an extra in the movie. And so, anytime I get to meet, I'm always interested, comic book writers. When I get to meet comic book writers and artists that I've admired forever, meeting Frank Quietly, we had all the comic book writers come down to set. And that was like, oh man, that's so cool. So I'm really, I have my sort of micro interests in those are the things that really excite me. It's never the people that anybody thinks,
And you've turned it into your job, which is great.
Nerdist.
And I am a lifelong DC fan. And I'm so happy that each of you are playing these roles. And I'm so happy that I finally got to see these characters up on the big screen. I'm going to get very nerdy. I'm going to ask you guys about my favorite thing about these characters from comic books, from animated series, because I have to take this opportunity. Okay, Isabela. My favorite Hawk Girl, other than your Hawk Girl, Justice League Unlimited. Absolute favorite. Nathan, you did a voice on that. Great job.
Yes,
really
sir. I was
job.
Vigilante.
That's right.
God.
Yes.
That's correct.
We've worked together, you and I, sort of, in the past. Your character and mine.
Oh my God, with Maria.
That's right. Yes. Maria did a wonderful Hawk Girl. In that show, she goes through a lot with the Thanagarians, and she has this amazing dynamic, fan favorite, with Green Lantern John Stewart. What is the thing you're most excited about your Hawk Girl's potential future?
I mean, I really love the idea, and that's why I love Lois and Clark's stories, like the alien-human love story. There's just something so romantic about that to me. It's like, we shouldn't, but we should. We shouldn't. And that really got my heart as a kid. It broke my heart, too, when she eventually abandoned.
The betrayal.
The betrayal is crazy. But, I mean, my love for the character that Maria brought to the show, it definitely transferred to this version, who is not Sha'ira, but she's Kendra, but still she has all the memories of her past life. So I'm definitely a huge fan of her story. So I can't wait to see how that evolves, or even if there is a romantic aspect that could potentially be, because I'm a romantic at heart, for sure.
Beautiful. Nathan.
Yes.
Has James already promised you that you're going to get punched in the face by Batman? Because that's my favorite thing about Guy Gardner.
Wouldn't that be great? There's a part, it's actually in the trailer, so there's no spoilers here, where Guy actually gets up in Superman's face and thinking he could probably take Superman. I do not think Guy Gardner can take on Superman.
But he thinks he can.
Clearly that's his ability, is his overconfidence.
And I mean this in the highest possible complimentary way. You are a perfect Guy Gardner. So really great.
Wait a minute.
Eddie, I love Mr. Terrific so much, and I'm so happy he's finally getting his due. My favorite thing about this character is that in the comics, he eventually forms his own team called the Terrifics. Phantom Girl, Plastic Man is on the team. Also, Metamorpho is on the team.
Mm-hmm.
In your humble actor opinion, what would you like Mr. Terrific to get to do? Maybe stick around with this Justice Gang for a while, or would you like to see him break off and make his own team, the Terrifics?
Well, this is the beginning of a new universe, so there's a lot of possibilities and potential, and hopefully this goes for a very long time, in which we get to explore all of these different things.
Can I say something about Mr. Terrific?
Yeah.
I feel like he's so smart, he has to exercise a lot of patience with everyone else for not being as smart as he is.
Yeah.
I feel like he's just a little with other people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just like
Which is
Eddie's-
great. A wonderful color.
Yeah, your Rex Mason, Metamorpho, had so much heart in this movie, and there's so many different ways his story could potentially go. In the comic books, he's on the Terrifics, like I mentioned. He's also on a team called the Outsiders with Batman. He also gets his own superpowered dog. Like, what is something that maybe you're wishing for Rex that you, as an actor, get to depict someday?
Well, I think similarly, there's just so much potential. And yeah, without giving spoilers, just where we're finding Rex at the moment, I think you really just are kind of scratching the surface of what he's capable of. Because obviously in the comic books, I mean, it's insane. Like all of his powers, it's nuts, just what he's able to do. So I'm just excited to kind of see where James's imagination can take him and take the character and all the really cool stuff, that might be in store.
I want to keep him. I want to keep Metamorpho.
Okay.
Last question, because I am with Nerdist. You don't have to go in depth, but I would love to just from each of you, real quick, what's something that you nerd out about?
Video games.
Video games. Isabel.
Legos.
Legos.
Video games, yes, definitely. Legos a little bit. Some Star Wars Legos. You can call me in
You
that.
and I are the fidgety.
And then I'll say I'm still in for comic books and anything animated.
And absolutely. Eddie.
Filmmakers.
Oh.
Wow.
Well, you guys got a good one with James Gunn. I mean,
Yeah. I wish I could say something, Mel. I feel like that's very boring.
That's as
For the
nerdy as
actor
you
to say
get.
filmmaker.
That's as nerdy as you get.
That's as nerdy as I get.
They gave us these things. I want to keep saying Hector Navarro, Daily Planet.
Please
but I'm
do.
not.
Please do.
I'm here
Please
with
do.
Nerdist. But I'm so excited about this. I'm so nerdy about this. So I'm here with Nerdist. Hello, great to see you.
Hi.
Nice
Nice to meet you.
My first question for you both is, what has the fan response been like from Venezuela and Portugal? How excited are those fans to see you in the film?
I think people in Portugal are still confused. Why, because I feel like most people know me from modeling, so like, what is Sarah doing there?
Right.
So hopefully it'll be a nice surprise, and I hopefully they'll be proud, and they like my performance, and they like Eve. So yeah.
I'm sure they're gonna love it. Yeah.
For Venezuela, it's been a big deal. It's a huge deal, and I'm still processing, because of course we did this and we loved it and it was great for us. But to feel the reaction from my country has been unbelievable. My face is literally, well, engineer's face is literally on the popcorn things at every movie theater around the country, and I'm like, I don't know, I have no words for that. I'm so happy.
That's awesome. Yes, and Portugal's gonna love it because Eve is hilarious in the movie.
Oh, thank
And you're also so funny as engineer, but in a different way. The sense
Yes.
of humor.
Oh my
Because
God.
you, comedically, you are such a great, broad character, so over the top. And you play such an important role in the comedy. You are the straightforward person.
I keep saying that everyone just yells and rolls their eyes at me the whole time. So she's just like, she got
Every
so good at
time.
me like, Eve.
And you know what? I have this idea, and I told James about this, that Lex and Engineer kind of do have a relationship after hours. And of course, she respects Eve because she's there, but she's
Does
like,
she though?
come
Does
on.
she though?
Like, lady, you've got nothing. Let me tell you what your boyfriend actually likes.
Exactly. See, your character makes your character funnier, and vice versa. You make her funnier.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Look.
So both of your characters, like you mentioned, you're in the orbit of Lex Luthor, okay?
Yes.
And I would love to know, what do you think your characters would say? Because in this movie, Lex is a real he is awful. But
terrible.
what would you think your characters would say is the best thing about Lex and the worst thing about Lex?
You want to go first?
Yeah, well, I think the best thing about Lex, according to the Engineer, would be his determination. He's very determined, and so is the Engineer. So I feel like they see each other there. And I think that the worst thing would be that also his determination, because he's unable to back down even when he knows he's not gonna reach his goal. So he's willing to destroy a city, for it. And I think Engineer, that's where she draws the line.
Absolutely.
I mean, Lex is obviously played by Nicholas, which he's such an ugly guy, obviously. No, but she sees Lex as this handsome, rich, powerful man that, when my backstory, Eve doesn't really come from money, so everything, she wants that security, so I think he provides her that financial and even life security.
So I would love to know, before you got the role, before you got the audition, what was your connection to these characters and to Superman? How nerdy did you go? Did you know the films? Did you do any comic books? Or was it very much like, as soon as you got the role and talking to James, all of a sudden you're in it?
So I did a show years ago that was based on a comic book as well called Deli Class. So I got into comics then.
Yes.
And it opened up my world, and it was beautiful. So when I got this audition, I'm like, oh yeah, we're gonna dive in, especially with the Authority. I didn't really know anything about them at all. I was very, ignorant to that.
Yes.
But then DC gave us the access to all of the comics
Yeah, they gave us
from
a link.
DC.
Yeah, it's pretty
Everything.
cool.
And I kept seeing Eddie reading everything in between takes, and we did that because that is such a privilege.
Absolutely. Did you go back, did James talk to you about seeing the original Superman film with Eve Tessmacher, a great character in that movie.
He didn't. Like, I didn't really knew Eve before I got the audition. And I was working with my acting coach, and, you know, he explained a little bit, and then obviously I went to watch the movies. But, you know, I was a big Superman. He was always one of my favorite superheroes. And, you know, I grew up with, like, Smallville, and I watched the movies, and I'm like, okay, like, she's so cool.
Yeah.
And she's so funny and so endearing. And even though this iteration is a little bit different than the original, she's a little more modern, and I didn't want to lose that childlike quality that she has.
Yeah.
And she's not much in the comics, so
Right.
it also gave me a little bit more freedom to really play with her. But yeah, I was like a big comic book fan even growing up, because my dad had them all around the house.
Who among the four of you do you think is the nerdiest, who was geeking out the most on set with all the little details, all the little comic book stuff?
I think it's one of these two.
I would say Wendell.
I'm gonna say Wendell.
No, really?
Well,
Wendell or
Wendell
Mikaela?
loves history. Yeah, you like.
Well, I
And you have such an eye for detail.
I did a deep dive into the backstory of Perry White, and the fact is, Lex Luthor had an affair with his wife, and his second child may not be his. It may be Lex Luthor's.
What?
So that is the burning fire and anger that I have. But if you were anywhere near any of these actors on the set, their desk, their choices, their conversations, when you look at the scenes and you see them having a conversation behind the scenes, the story, the backstory that they've created with all those characters, that is very detailed. He studied photography. The props that he carries on in our mission as she prepares to go out with us, all the details are there. So I would say we're all on par.
Beck, I have a question for you. I don't know if you saw this. Sarah Sherman said you're the most beloved SNL cast member to the rest of the cast. How does that feel?
Holy hell!
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. It's official. It's truth. That's a fact. I did see that. I could not believe it. I had a very emotional response to it. Really? I was having a bad day, and then my wife sent that to me, and I was like, oh my God. I could not believe it. She came in the year after I left. I was the only cast member to leave.
That's right.
Which is great. You know, when you want to leave SNL by yourself, so everybody focuses on you and celebrates you. You don't want to leave when like 3 other beloved cast members are leaving, because they wouldn't have known I was gone otherwise. But yeah, it was. I could not believe it.
Well, you guys are a part of a movie that is this, like Beck said before we started rolling, this is the beginning of the DC universe, baby, the Big Bang. There is so much potential in this with your characters in the Daily Planet, like being central to some fantastic stories. Are there any, I'm going to say, other than Batman, because I think he's going to be the most popular, are there any other iconic DC superheroes that you would love to see visit the Daily Planet offices so that your characters could maybe interact with them in a future story?
Well, as an editor, I'm going to say Batman.
What is something that each of you nerds out about?
I'm obsessed with scary movies.
Scary
so
movies?
that is my go-to obsession.
Awesome.
That I'm, yeah.
Wendell, what do you got?
Is it nerdy? Or just like strange?
Go ahead. Listen, it's not
I
strange.
actually
Go ahead.
cried. You know, horse dancing, dressage?
No, like the sport?
The horses dance like that? The gold medal horse dance in the 2012 Olympics was so beautiful, and I cried. And thinking about it, I can cry.
Oh my God!
It's the nerdiest thing in the world, and I realized it was nerdy. I didn't think it was nerdy before, until I shared it with someone.
No. And then they said,
you're the only
it was
person.
so beautiful. And I said, and she was dancing, and it was in London, and it was to Jerusalem. Wasn't that beautiful? And I said, what the? Are you talking about?
My editors, we're gonna play a clip of that. We're gonna, as you're talking
You
over
put it in.
I
put it in because I'm sure people will appreciate it. That's my thought.
You guys cannot top that, but go ahead, give me your best shot. What's something you nerd out about?
It's not even that. It's just like cooking. I love just like going, down rabbit holes.
I'd say animals. I just read this book called An Immense World by Ed Young. It's about the sensory experience of different animals. It's fascinating, like why they do what they do. Like it's the best, one of the best books I've ever read. I can't recommend it.
Answer. Why do they dance? Why
Yeah,
do
why
horses
do
dance?
horses dance?
Well,
that in the book?
I wish I could tell you why the horses danced. I might have missed that in the first read. Or we could write Ed a letter and ask him to do one on the horse dancing specifically. Yeah. We need it.
So beautiful.
You'd be first in
We need an
line.
explanation. We take it for granted. Horses dancing. We're like, yeah, horses dancing. Why? Wait.
Wait,
Why?
do they naturally dance or are people
I think it's the
training them?
treats they're given.
No.
No.
in the soul of
Something
it.
in their hearts.
You guys are gonna destroy this memory I have because I know the training is probably just cruel and abusive.
I don't think it's like jazz. I don't think they're just like feeling it.
They probably show them another video of a horse dancing and they just start doing it. Why not?
Mimicry.
I love these characters very, very much, and I have most of my life. And I wanted to tell you guys, seeing you talk about these characters in the press for the past couple of weeks and months, it like brings me so much joy, because even with little blurbs, I'm like, yeah, she nailed it. That's to me who Lois is, or that's who Clark is. And I wanted to know, is that something that happened like when James Gunn is pitching these characters to you, or do you sort of have what I call, in a positive way, the emotional baggage of these? Like, I bring these characters with me, you know what I mean, from my life, and I just I think I have a handle on it. How did you guys get to the point where you feel this way about these characters?
Well, that means a lot coming
Yeah,
from
really
you,
a huge
so
amount,
Thank
yeah.
you very much for saying that.
You saying recently that you feel like this is the most similar to yourself you've ever played a
But I
character.
have the emotional baggage required.
and then what I just was saying about like realizing that James's directions while we were shooting kept feeling like they were pushing me back towards my first instincts and away from an idea that I had about the character makes me feel like maybe we have something in us that was oriented correctly for this iteration of the film. And it's just awesome to hear that lines up with your instincts. And then, of course, we had so many amazing hour-long conversations with James and with Nick as well, sort of figuring out who we were in relationship to each other that deepened that. And then when James describes what he wants the movie to be, you know, that's everything in the end. So, but I don't think we ever felt like we weren't aligned. Yeah. There was certainly some coming together, but the first instincts were, I guess, pretty good, which is cool.
These characters are easy to love. I mean, they've endured for so many generations for a reason. Their love story has endured. The rivalry between Superman and Lex has endured. You know, it's easy to fall in love with them, and that's not always easy to do as an actor. And I feel like James has also assembled a group of actors who, not only does he require the bar to be very, very high and for us all to come prepared, but I think a group of actors who naturally love that part of the process.
Yes. I wonder if he inadvertently did it on purpose.
Yeah. He's like, I cast you for a reason. Yeah. Just go back to what you were thinking about.
Yeah. Stop talking, be Superman.
Yeah.
Work on your shoulders and your vulnerability.
In this take, could you just be Superman, please? Could you just, so the other thing I wanted to ask too is, again, with that emotional baggage that I described, like I love these characters and so many iterations of them. If all goes well, and I think it will, you guys could be returning to these characters for a good long while. And they go through a lot in various stories. You know, they die defending Metropolis right in the middle of the city. They get married, they have kids in many iterations. What's something that you as actors are excited about the potential future that you would love to get to do?
Being non-specific,
yes.
But one thing that excites me so much about James's vision for the DCU is the different genres and tones that the movies can take on. I know that people are skeptical that certain genres and characters can mix. I would love to see this Superman in an R-rated project, in a detective, you know, in a thing like Lanterns, where it's that true detective feel. I just think it can happen, despite how, you know, in spite of how bright and playful this version of the character is. I think there's room to be flexible, so I'd be very excited to see that.
I was so jealous of everybody in the gym. Everybody got to hang out with Paolo and with each other, and we'd go out to dinner and everyone was like, Paolo, 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 and muscles, muscles, muscles. But in some iterations of the comics, Lois becomes Superwoman. James, I've talked James's ear off about this. It would be so much fun. But the truth is, anything we say isn't going to be as good as whatever James comes up with. We've become deeply familiar with these characters more recently. James has lived with them his entire life. And so we're mostly just excited if we get the opportunity to step into these shoes again to see what he comes up with for us.
And James is so good at he's a filmmaker that like he knows all that stuff. He can play with it, but he can also surprise an audience.
Yeah.
And that's a rare thing to be able to pull off. And so
dream as an actor, be surprised.
Absolutely, guys. Because I am here with Nerdist, I would love to ask, what is something, David, Rachel, what's something that you nerd out about?
I'll give a two-part answer. Star Wars.
We know that. Yes,
comes to like literature, and then aviation, specifically aviation communication. I will listen to air traffic control recordings on YouTube for hours and hours and hours.
It's
I
nerdy.
just find it to be so cool.
Really nerdy.
Yeah, the way.
Rachel, what about you?
Where were you going with that?
Too far.
Too far.
Yeah.
Quit while
We'll
you're
sit
ahead.
down for a while. We can talk through it.
Sounds good.
This is the place for it, you know. This sounds so nerdy. I just love to learn. It's part of why I became an actor. It's true. It's part of why I became an actor. One of my favorite things is getting to play people who have a very sharp look into a world that I don't understand at all. That's meant that I've had the opportunity to learn new languages. I've been learning sign language, which I love. It's such a beautiful language, and I'm hoping I get the opportunity to put it to use properly someday. Learned how to handle pigeons. I'm like a semi-professional pigeon handler at this point. Got to dip my toe into stand-up comedy. I mean, I love the opportunity to keep learning and nerding out for short but really intense periods of time about different stuff.
Again, the compliment. That's such a Lois and such a Clark answer. I love that. That was great.
Pigeon handling. I didn't know that was a job.
Boy, is it.
Guys, thank you so much for chatting with me today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Great
so
questions.
much.
Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.